time to... I'll fight you. You can't hide from me.
2 years ago today, for some reason I decided to start uploading one Skyrim video a day until the release of The Elder Scrolls 6. For those of you who were around for my last series anniversary video, you might remember that, in addition to serving as an opportunity to recap the series thus far, I also for fun made 10 predictions about The Elder Scrolls 6 as something I could come back to in the future when the game is released. This time I've put together a Skyrim trivia quiz for you to play along with. It's simple. Questions will appear on the screen one at a time for you to answer. They're all Skyrim related, and I've done my best to include a variety of questions, ranging in difficulty from "that was easy" to "Jesus Christ, who knows the answer to that?", though they are mostly on the difficult side, to be honest. There are 52 questions in total, one for every week of the year. If you want to play along, I'd recommend you pause the video and get a pen and paper or open Notepad on your PC, or do whatever makes the most sense to let you record your answers. At the very end of the video, the answers will be revealed so you can see how well you did. Just a bit of dumb fun, really. Now for the recap. If I had to sum the past year up, I'd call it the year of technical difficulties. I've had a number of things go wrong with the series that have wasted hours of my time. In January of this year, I wanted to record a particularly long session in order to stockpile episodes for a few months, as I was going to be busy at work and wanted to ensure I didn't miss an upload. I recorded for about 6 or 7 hours and got some of the craziest footage I'd managed to capture so far. When I put the footage into Vegas to start editing it into videos, I learned something horrific. For some reason, there was no audio. I had absolutely no idea what had happened, but for some reason the audio track was completely blank, so all that footage was unusable, and so I deleted it. I tried to record the segment again, this time only playing for a little while to see if the issue persisted, and it did. I tried again several times to fix the problem until eventually giving up for the night. I came back to it the next day, tried to record a small segment, tested to see if the audio recorded this time, and it did. So I was relieved and I recorded for another few hours, and when I put the footage into Vegas, the audio track was blank again. I recorded another short test clip, and the audio was blank. I played around a bit and managed to record a clip that had working audio, so I recorded for another few hours and, as you might expect, the audio was broken. Then I realised there was a correlation between having Netflix open and paused in my browser and audio not recording correctly. I closed Netflix, recorded, and it worked. I opened Netflix, recorded, and it didn't work. And so I found the problem. Netflix has some dumb proprietary DRM system that interferes with Shadowplay's ability to record audio if Netflix is open. Yay, copyright law. Having solved the problem, I decided to take the night off and come back to it later. Things were fine for a while until, after a few weeks, the problem came back, and Netflix wasn't the culprit. At this point, I decided to switch recording software from Shadowplay to Meddle. It seemed promising at first, but it came with a major problem. The way Meddle encoded its video files meant that it was slow to update in the preview window in Vegas, which massively slowed down the editing process. Something that would take 2 seconds to do with Shadowplay would take 12 with Meddle. At that point, I decided to try OBS. OBS was similar to Meddle in regards to encoding, but OBS also enjoyed stealthily changing a setting that resulted in it recording my microphone and merging that with the game's audio track, again, leading to hours of wasted time and effort. I realised 20 minutes into editing when I heard myself cough in the footage. So I went back to Shadowplay, and thus the problem of missing audio continued to hinder me and waste hours of my time with unusable footage. Searching online gave me absolutely no help whatsoever. This missing audio had been an on and off problem for months, until by pure happenstance, I managed to find the actual problem. I was in a Discord voice channel with some of my friends, and mid-conversation I opened Vegas to start working on editing, when they told me that my audio had cut out. I reset my microphone, verified that they could hear me, then closed and relaunched Vegas. They could no longer hear me. As it turns out, launching Vegas does something to your audio devices and system sounds, and if you have a program like Shadowplay that is always running, this can mess with your recordings. Once I've opened Vegas, I need to change my default system sound device, and magically it starts working again. I hate technology. That was the first of the major problems I faced this year. There is another one, and this one I haven't yet solved. This second problem is a particularly weird one, where audio starts to loop itself in the recording. It generally only lasts for a few seconds, but it's very noticeable when it happens, and it can utterly ruin clips. Here's an example of the problem. It's especially bad when dialogue is involved.
I should come along. I would very much like to see this dragon.
No. I can't afford to risk both of you. I need you here working on ways to defend us.
As you command.
What the?
One last thing, Irileth. This isn't a death or glory mission. I need to know what we're dealing with.
Don't worry, my lord. I'm the very soul of caution.
What's frustrating about this is that during gameplay, everything is normal. It's only when I drop the footage into Vegas that I realise that it's unusable. I've had to go back and re-record about a dozen sections just to get around this problem, and I still have absolutely no idea what's causing it. There have been a couple of instances that I've just let slip in because they're relatively minor and it would be a lot of work to re-record that particular segment, but it's so infuriating not knowing what the cause is. Hopefully I manage to solve the problem when I play Skyrim over the winter and finish up the series' first playthrough. Oh, yeah, right. We're running out of content. As it turns out, Todd Howard's famous line that Skyrim has infinite quests isn't quite true. Well, it depends on how generous you want to be. Back in 2011 when Skyrim was released, one of the latest and greatest buzzwords in the gaming scene was procedurally generated. This was back when Minecraft was still a hype juggernaut and people were blown away by the idea that you could walk in one direction and the world would just keep generating. Skyrim's infinite Radiant quests are procedurally generated, but not in any particularly interesting manner. In essence, Skyrim's procedurally generated quests all follow a fixed format, just with randomized locations, characters, and MacGuffins. The Dark Brotherhood's Radiant quest has you visit random generic NPC in settlement or city specific to them, to collect a contract to kill random generic NPC in settlement or city specific to them. There are 10 contract givers and 10 targets, for a total of 100 combinations that are all repeatable. I genuinely considered making Dark Brotherhood Radiant quests a part of the series until we saw each contract giver and each target, but really it just felt like a cheap thing to do. While the contract giver and the targets might be different, the quest is still the same. The Thieves Guild has more variety in Radiant missions, having 7 instead of just the 1, but it's effectively the same thing. Do the same basic mission type, but with randomized targets. Go to this random house and steal this random bejeweled item. Now go to this other random house and steal this other random bejeweled item. Now go back to this other random house, but steal the same item that you just stole for us on that other mission. Vex even acknowledges this in her dialogue, which is very tongue-in-cheek if you ask me. The best part is that sometimes the quests will make you target houses belonging to people who you have brokered a deal with. One second you're helping Alfred Battleborn get his friend out of prison to convince him to support the guild, next thing you're breaking into his house to steal his golden ship model, because who need business alliances when you can fence tap for minuscule profits? I'm not saying that every mission in the game has to be standout and unique. These generic missions do have their place in the larger game, though using them to tout the game as having infinite quests is morally questionable in my opinion. It's more so that once I've done them once, as far as I'm concerned, they're done in the context of the series, and it doesn't make sense to do them again and again ad infinitum. The exception to this is where you need to complete a number of generic quests to unlock other quests, such as finding the totems of Hircine with Ayala, curing Farkas and Vilkas of lycanthropy, which by the way is buggy as hell if you try to do it in the wrong order, and unlocking the 4 Thieves Guild side quests to restore the guild and become the guildmaster. This video will go up when the last of the Thieves Guild side quests is being completed, so if any of you are annoyed at how the past month has had a bunch of repetitive episodes, consider yourself lucky that you didn't have to do all 125 of them to unlock the safe in the Thieves Guild and fully complete the faction. Anyway, back to my original point. As mentioned earlier, I've had to do some bulk recording and editing to ensure that I don't miss a day. Currently I have episodes uploaded until the 8th of July next year. Why? At some point I might end up going on a several month trip abroad and I don't quite know when it will happen, so I want to ensure the series doesn't miss a day. In preparing so far ahead, I've actually played through most of the remaining game. I've completed the College of Winterhold, the Companions, the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, and, most recently, the main quest. Outside of sparse bits of side content left undone here and there, the only major quest lines left untouched are the Dawnguard questline, the Dragonborn questline, and the Civil War. That's it. The game is close to being over. Between the remaining quest lines and side content left to do, I'm sure the first playthrough will last until the 11th of November 2024, but I'm not so sure it will last until the 11th of November 2025. I'm certain before the 11th of November 2026, Todd Howard the Orc will have done pretty much everything there is to do in Skyrim. Once that happens, I want to retire the character, but I'm not planning on ending the series. Since Starfield has released, there have been dribs and drabs of information on the Elder Scrolls 6, and it looks like the release date could be about 5 years away. Last year I predicted a release date of the 20th of June 2026, which, given what we know now, is optimistic, to say the least. Bear in mind that the teaser trailer for TES 6 came out in June 2018, so the time between that trailer releasing and the game itself could be over 10 years if we do get a 2028 release. In any case, this first playthrough will come to an end before TES 6 releases, which presents a problem as I'm not yet sure as to what I want to do with the series at that point. I considered a second playthrough, this time on Legendary difficulty, but the more I thought about it, the more I realised that Legendary difficulty wouldn't really add anything to the series. In fact, I used the Fortify Restoration loot to create one-shot items because early on in the series I felt combat was overemphasised, and the shortcut style I used to use took a lot of editing time. If you go way back to episode 16 and watch the fight against the Draugr in the Dragonstone, you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Lots of small cuts which overall improve the feel and flow of the combat segments, but take a lot of work to do compared to just one-shotting enemies and watching the ragdolls. At its worst, you get segments like in episode 37, where I use an enemy to simultaneously grind illusion, sneak and one-handed by spamming calm and dagger sneak attacks. The result isn't so bad, it just takes time. Regardless, I have a year or so to mull over what I'll do with the series once this first playthrough ends, so it's not a big issue as of right now. That's pretty much all I have to recap this year. I'd like to end by thanking each and every one of you who watch, like and comment on my videos. The channel is nothing serious, just a bit of idle fun while we wait for TES 6 to release. But it is nice to know that there are people out there who enjoy it. I enjoy seeing the same names coming back for more. You know who you are. For those of you who did the quiz, the answers are coming up in just a moment. If you've listened to this episode as a podcast and wanted to go back and do the quiz afterwards, now is the time to rewind. Alright, here are the answers. For those of you who have done particularly well, you might find that the first letter of each of your answers spells out an important message. See you next year.